Thank you everyone for being here so on time. We're gonna wait a couple minutes so that folks can settle in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, sorry, I just realized the Teams was muted. So a poll was sent to approve the minutes. For the people on the Teams, feel free to, well, not feel free. Please fill it out. Thanks.
All right. For those who are just entering the chamber and those coming onto the teams, we do need 3 more votes to meet quorum. Our quorum number is 34 today. And so as soon as those votes get in, we can be able to close the vote on the cycle 5 minutes. All right, we are now at 34, which meets our standard for quorum. Is there anyone in the chamber who has not had the ability to vote yet, either here physically or on the teams? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and delete the poll. And with a vote of 33 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 abstention, this motion clearly passes. And with that item out of the way, we will now be moving to the second item on our agenda, which is an officer report from our student body president, Naya McAdoo. Naya, you will be allotted 10 minutes for the officer report. Do it at the end.
All right. Cool. Hi, everybody. Yeah, great to see y'all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being on Teams. Yeah, so I worked with Sadie, Hamana, Andrew, and Dr. Durham to allocate funds from the Presidential Endowment Account to establish 2 additional endowment accounts that will benefit students, one being the Watkins Health and the other pertaining to the Equal Opportunity Fund. So if you have questions about that, reach out to those individuals and they can give you a better breakdown and details around that. A message of support for students from the Student Advisory Committee that's under KBOR was sent up to Dr. Durham. So planning to work with her to discuss distribution to all students. Committees and boards are still needing members by my appointment, so please see the teams. I put a flyer in there. If you guys could share that around, or you have students or yourselves who would like to be on those committees and boards, please just reach out to me or Max. And then I'll be working with Sarah to figure out how to also distribute that through Rock Chalk Central. The Women's Leadership Committee met last week to begin our planning of the Women in Leadership event that'll happen in March. I met with our DEI director, our grad student VP, and Dr. Graham, the vice provost of DEI, to discuss campus efforts. So the DEI director updated us in Studex regarding that meeting, and we discussed mandatory training, the demographic breakdown on DEI training. We were informed about identity scholarships, and our DEI director will also be meeting with Teaching America to discuss Senate partnership and how to continue educating on DEI initiatives, as well as seeing how that fits into the DEI retreat that they are planning. I've been working with the SGD, Dr. Joseph and Dr. Durham, to discuss support of the Trans Closet and how the Presidential Endowment may additionally fund that initiative. I met with some other Black student leaders in the OMA this week to discuss initiatives on campus, also how Student Senate may collaborate and build partnership with historically excluded communities on campus. I have a follow-up meeting with the Lawrence Sunrise Movement to discuss student involvement and input of the city's climate action plan. That info has been posted on our social media, so feel free to check that out. Through Douglas County, they have a survey. It's 5 to 10 minutes. I suggest you fill it out, as students have a lot to say in these initiatives, especially being citizens here in Lawrence. This week, I've been working with several exec staff members on projects that will be benefiting our campus community overall, and student senate members as a whole. I'll also be using the next few weeks to determine how to best continue serving my executive staff moving forward in their roles. Also, as fellow students and people, I recognize that there has been a lack of communication between myself and some of my office members. It's a commitment of mine to rectify that moving forward and to better that. Our policy and development director has established the warm clothes drive, which is going to be the 9th through the 19th. We have boxes established in some residence halls, and then there's one that's also outside of our office. So feel free to come drop clothes off if you're able to. They are also planning a redistribution event before Thanksgiving break. They're also going to be meeting with Watkins to discuss expansion of their coat closet, so we can continue serving students through Senate partnership. And there will also be a student Senate self-care night that's being planned for December 8th. So mark your calendars for that and be on the lookout for social media posts regarding that. Our comms director has been updating the new website platform, and we should see progress by the end of the week. They're also laying out an in-depth social media calendar for posts and outreach. We'll be doing senator spotlights each week based on the surveys that are going to be coming from the internal affairs director, so be looking out for that. Our government relations director is finishing up the details for holidays in higher ed, so be prepared for some great food and opportunity to mingle with legislators and community leaders in the beginning of December. Upon completion of this project, our government relations director has decided to step down for personal reasons, and although we're sad to see Birdie go, we support her and look forward to continuing working with her through Loud Light collaborations. The government relations application will be open starting tomorrow through Sunday at 12 a.m., so apply if you're interested and encourage others to do so as well if they are. In the one-on-one with Dr. Durham, following our last StudEx meeting, we were able to receive some project updates. We're meeting with Student Housing in 2 weeks to discuss their suicide prevention training for housing staff and what that training's role will look like in the future. In this meeting, we will also discuss student housing initiatives for gender-inclusive housing, international communities in student housing, res halls, and scholarship halls. At the most recent meeting of the University Senate, Jeff DeWitt, KU CFO, gave an update on the university's financial status. Overall, the university continues to receive federal COVID-19 relief funding, but does not have reliable financial support to maintain its current budget. Tuition fees and housing rate increases are being recommended by KU to the Kansas Board of Regents. The reasoning given for the housing increase was that housing had much needed maintenance and debt payment as primary concerns. This is something that we'll be discussing further. Our treasurer has been meeting with lots of student groups to discuss funding opportunities and their needs from Senate. They'll be working to help train our new associate treasurer in the coming weeks and have welcomed them to the office in the past few days. Documents for block and line will be made available after Thanksgiving. And then please message Hamad with any diet restrictions. If you attend Senate in person, as food and drinks will be at Senate for the rest of the year. And our internal affairs director has got the mentorship program link uploaded on the website, and they will now be presenting the data collected from the internal demographic survey.
Thank you very much.
Let me share screen.
And this will essentially just be a continuation of the officer report. So time is going to be expiring here in 3 minutes. Do I have any motions to extend time? See a motion from Alejandro?
Let's do 15.
All right. Motion to extend by 15 minutes. Do I see a second? I see a second from Stewart. All right. Is there anyone in the chamber and or on the teams in opposition to this action? All right. Seeing none, you will now have like 18 minutes to finish here. All right.
Awesome. So this is the data from the internal demographic survey. I'll preface this by saying about 35 people filled it out, and not everyone responded to every individual question, so it may not be representative of our body as a whole, but this is the sample size we have. So let's get into it. This is our internal data. The ID is internal demographics. That's what that stands for. So the orange is LGBTQ identifying people for sexual orientation versus the non-LGBTQ. And this is good because KU didn't have specific data, so I compared it to the American Association of Universities, which I think is about 50 or 60 universities, and they had a sample size of 180,000. Their percentage was about 10%, or actually wrong number. Their percentage was about 17%, whereas ours was 31. So that's a good thing. We aren't underrepresenting that group. Next, KU did not have data on trans/non-binary students. So I used the same survey for that data. So as you can see, they have 3,060 out of 180,000, which is about 1.7%, which whereas ours are these two gray and yellow ones, non-binary and gender fluid. So ours is about 18%. And then I thought this was interesting, but the KU Common data set, which is what I used to compare a lot of this to, doesn't have an option for trans or non-binary. It's just male or female. So then I use this to compare our male to female ratio, and they're about the same. Let me get the specific percentage. So KU's is 54% of undergraduate and graduates are female, whereas ours are 52%. Our body is 52% female. So not a very big difference there. Next, we have race. And something interesting to note about this, and this is kind of an asterisk to this data, is that KU didn't use the census and Kansas government standard, which is where you don't have Latino, Latina, Hispanic listed as a race. You list it as a separate ethnicity. They combined it into the kind of general question of race and didn't ask a separate question about ethnicity. So these data, this data may not necessarily completely line up. But if anything, I think that overstates our white population, which is the yellow, which is already lower than the KU Common data set. So that's a good thing because wow. So KU is 70% white according to this 2020 survey, whereas we are about 64%. But like I said, I think that might be overstated because of the difference in survey. And then keep that in mind. And then there's the internal groups that you can see with the smaller pie slices. I know I'm pointing at this computer, but the light blue, orange, and dark blue. And then you can see the categories they line up to on the bottom. But for the comparison, I just did white to minority as a percentage instead of comparing each individual percent to each other. Next, we have ethnicity, which for KU was 1,735 out of around 19,000. So KU is about 10%, whereas we are 30% Hispanic, as you can see from the internal demographics. Then we have age distribution. I didn't really compare this to KU's because I didn't think there was a point in doing that. And we have specific slots for graduate senators. So this is just our age distribution. As expected, most of us are 18, 19, 20, 21. Next, we have food insecurity. So this was interesting. The Food for Jayhawks website listed a 2016 survey where 54% of KU students said they were food insecure. I couldn't find the specific survey they referenced, but I trust them. So I just used it as the comparison for their data. This is probably one of our most troubling data points, is that in comparison to that, we have, so the percentage is they are 54%, whereas we are 21%. So I think there might be some, yeah, go ahead.
Quick question is, do we have any information on campus, like, for example, campus coverage ability to reduce that food insecurity at all?
I am not sure. It was actually listed on a subsection of their website. Or do you have an answer to that?
Oh, hold on for a second. We're going to get a mic passed down here so that we can have that for our stream as well.
I'm constantly correcting the data. The 54% is inaccurate. There was a student who did a small study as his thesis upon graduation. His name is Ike Uri, and he had a very small sample size, very small response. Did not include first-year students, did not include graduate students, I think, and found 54%. And his recommendation was that we do more studies. Since we've done a campus-based study and we participated in the Real College National Assessment, we're more at a 33% food insecurity rate, not 54.
Okay.
So that might put us more in line with what you're seeing with the national data.
That would still put us at somewhat of disparity since we're
Yeah,
at 21%.
it's still concerning,
but
but
much
not
less
54.
concerning than when I initially saw that. So thank you for that clarification. Yeah, so we have that, and then for the other class variable, we have financial stability. So there wasn't a survey or data I could find just about financial stability writ large. So this may not be the most accurate comparison, but what I did was I compared from the common data set students who applied for and were determined to have need-based financial aid. So the first one is students who applied, and then the second one is those who were determined to have need. And then the last one is people who identified as financially unstable from the orange. Those percentages are 66% on the first one, then 44% and 30%. So another disparity there, kind of from the class variable perspective. Next, we have hometown. This is pretty interesting. We have more international students than out-of-state students, according to this data. So good on them for being overrepresented. Then for schools, this one, I mean, kind of makes sense that it has this distribution since College of Liberal Arts and Sciences has the most seats, and there's a lot of dedicated seats to those schools, but I thought I'd put it up here anyway. Then we have campus employment. So most of our student senators are campus employees. We have one person who's an on and off campus employee, and then we have about 37% or 37% that either, or I guess that's wrong, 31.4% aren't campus employees, and then whatever percentage that orange thing is off campus. I don't know the percentage. Then international students is 28-7. And then this is probably the most concerning, along with the class variable, is that 57% of us have been involved with Senate for less than 1 year, which suggests a very high drop-off rate for people who do it for 1 year and then don't want to continue. So my job now, after doing the survey, is to meet with the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion and Policy and Development Director and try to figure out how we can better address these discrepancies. So I think our main focuses are going to be on this one specifically, the class variables, and then getting more minorities involved as well from specific groups. Any questions?
Any other questions? Mary?
Why is it an issue that we have such a large portion of less than 1 year senators?
Because that's an indication that they don't want to continue with Senate.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we have 57% that do it for 1 year and then quit, that probably means something's wrong with Senate.
Question from Stuart?
So what you're saying, it's a high attrition rate, almost like a job. People do it for less than a year and automatically quit. So that's a really bad attrition rate.
Exactly.
All right. Any other questions for Max? All right. Seeing none, we can go ahead and continue on with the other parts of this officer report here. Yeah, Umberto.
All right. Thank you all so much for coming here in person. I know there's more people online today because of the storm outside, but I appreciate you all that made the effort to come here. So today we just have to confirm a couple of people. So we have some replacement senators that are going to be confirmed so that they can start getting voting rights in the Senate. We also have folks from the trial court that are being confirmed and folks from the Court of Appeals that are being confirmed. And we will also go later. I know Naya will be introducing our new associate treasurer, also to be affirmed here by you all. So yeah, just bear with me. I'm just going to go faster, read the names of the folks that are going to be acclimated. All these people have been reviewed and approved by committees of certain types, unless it's a replacement senator that applied to a seat that wasn't competed. So if you have any questions about a specific person, some people are here that were part of the search committee. Otherwise, I can also answer any questions. But so basically, for the trial court, we have 5 new people. And out of these 5 new people, one of them is going to become the chief judge. And then you have the other judges. So we have for the trial court, Caroline Whipple, Ritika Carey, Kristen Gilmore, Madison Messenger, and Rose McCormick. And so basically the trial court, again, is the one that deals mostly with the student senate elections. So they're in charge of setting like dates, setting the guidelines, making sure that all the candidates are following the rules, reviewing any like violation if anyone sets against someone, etc. So I'm gonna be looking for a motion to confirm these people to the trial court.
All right. Do we have a motion? I see a motion from Mary. I see a second from Alejandro. Is there any opposition to confirming these members to the trial court? All right. Seeing none, we will now move towards a vote. And reminder that this takes a 4/5 majority to confirm the members of the trial court. All right, that poll is now dropped in general. Vote yes if you'd like to approve all the new members of the trial court. Vote no if you would not like to approve all the new members, and abstain if you'd like to abstain from the vote. And I'll let that run for 2 minutes. And a reminder, as we're voting, the Little Caesars pizza just arrived here in the back. So if you want to grab a slice of pizza after you finish putting in your vote, feel free to do that. It's right there next to our advisor, Jennifer.
Again, no. Yeah, so basically like we got it all filled in, so no need to worry. Yeah, and with those like randomly selected, because it's random, it's not expected, like it's not mandatory that you show up, so it's totally understandable if you're not able to make it and things like that.
I didn't want to bypass you. It was not meant to be accusatory, it was meant to be, like, I just didn't want to, like, tap dance past you.
We need 2 more people? It looks like we are missing 2 votes in order to reach quorum for this vote. So if you haven't had the chance to vote, make sure you do submit a vote right now. Thank you. Right. We're still missing 1 vote to reach quorum. So if you haven't had a chance to vote, please submit it right now. Trial court. Oh, we got the 34. Woo. Awesome.
That one of the new ones as well.
Huh? Freshman.
All right. Has anyone in the chamber not had the ability to vote that can do so? Anyone on the team still waiting? All right. Seeing none, I will move to close the vote.
Oh, I'm good.
All
thank you.
right. I can get some quiet in the chamber for a second here. With 33 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion clearly passes, and all members are appointed to the trial court.
All right. And with that, we're gonna go ahead and move to the approval for all the new folks in the Court of Appeals. So the Court of Appeals basically is the official judicial branch of the Student Senate. So any matters relating to a violation of our governing document, the Code of Rights of Students, anything related to how we systematically go through the Senate and whether we're doing it right or wrong according to the rules or not, or whether like someone feels like we are not following what we're supposed to be following. This court is basically the one to get analyze all this. And we have 3 very well prepared candidates for the Court of Appeals this year. A lot of these folks have, some of them have worked for the Attorney General's Office of Missouri. They've worked in, legal cases with different law firms and stuff like that. So they're a pretty well prepared group of folks. One of them is Tara Wolf. One of them is Brian Ayers, and the other one is Nikki Phelps. And so out of these 3 people, 2 of them will become the associate judge, and one of them will become the chief justice. And with that being said, unless there are any questions about these candidates, I'll be looking for a motion.
I see a motion from Alejandro and a second from Faith. All right. And with that, do we have any opposition in the chamber to moving on to a vote to confirm these members? All right. Seeing none, we will move to make a vote. All right, that will now be posting. Vote yes if you would like to confirm these new judges. Vote no if you would not like to confirm them, and abstain if you would like to stay out of the vote. That'll launch now, and hopefully we can get it finished in 2 minutes here.
Looks like we're waiting on 4 more folks to vote. We're missing for 3 more votes. We literally just did a vote 2 minutes ago, so everyone should be here. Make sure that if you're online, you are submitting a vote. We're missing 2 more votes. Just 2 more votes. And we had quorum just 5 minutes ago, so I don't know where these folks are. Oh, there we go. One more. One more. There we go. We got it. Oh, never mind. 30, 30, 30. We're missing one more still.
Yeah, no, we still have 1 more vote. So, yeah. Once we get that, we will be chill. Yes, please take advantage of all of the pizza back there that you can. Oh, and I can see it's Papa John's now. I lied.
Folks, we're missing 1 more vote. If you haven't voted yet, please submit that now. Oh, we got the 34. Yay.
All right, and it looks like we have 34 votes here. Is there anyone in the chamber who has the ability to vote that hasn't yet done so? All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and move to close this vote. Here we go. All right, and with 33 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, these members are appointed to the Court of Appeals.
Finally, I'll try to go this relatively quick. We have our new replacement senators, and if they are present, they will have a chance to just like give a brief introduction. But this one will just need to have a verbal acclamation of them. So I'll be looking after I introduce them for a motion to acclimate, then we'll do verbal voting. If there's disagreement, we can do the actual vote on teams. But so we have Ankit Parsai as our new international senator. We have Noah Jensen as a new business senator. Kara Ebersole is our new social welfare senator, and it's actually the first time ever we've had the social welfare school completely filled in Senate since I've been here, so it's a good thing. Then we have Fabiana Salas joining as College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Danae Estabine also for College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. We have Blake Bush for engineering, Austin Stifler for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and finally Safa Khan from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences too. And I'll be looking for a motion to acclimate.
All right, I see a motion from Camden and I see a second from Mary. All right, and with that, is there any opposition in the chamber to acclimating all of these new replacement senators? All right, seeing none, welcome to the Senate, y'all.
I do know. I see Fabiana and Danae. Would you like to give a brief just introduction to the folks here? Yeah, Fabiana, you can go if you.
Do you want to give them the mic?
Yeah. Someone else from the introduction.
So hi everyone, my name is Fabiana Salas. I'm from Peru, and well, I'm really excited to be part of the Senate, and I'm really looking forward to make contributions that are valuable for the student body at KU. And well, yeah, that's basically it.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. Hi, I'm Danae Stabi, and I'm a freshman here at KU, double majoring in political science and psychology. And yeah, I'm really excited to get to know more of you and experience Student Senate.
And so that is the last for this. And the last acclamation we have to do tonight. Nai, would you like to introduce or should I just go for it? Okay. So we have hired here in Student Senate a new associate treasurer. They'll be helping out a lot through the fee review process next semester. They'll be in charge of the DEI fund. And the person we have decided as a team to hire to join us here is Mary Morrison. Yeah, no, Mary has been with us in Student Senate for a while, so we are very excited to have her join us. Mary, you're welcome to come give a brief, introduction, why you're excited, and then we can go ahead and acclimate you.
Hi, besties. My name is Mary Morrison. I use she, her pronouns. First and foremost, make sure you thank Hamad, Faith, and Wesley for getting the pizza tonight. They came in clutch. So, yeah, if you see them, say thank you. I'm very excited to be the associate treasurer. I have some experience with the DEI fund, and I just hope to make everything run as smoothly as possible. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Mary. All right. And do I see a motion to confirm? I see a motion from Faith. I see a second from Alejandro. All right. Is there any opposition to moving to a vote on this matter? All right. Seeing none, I will put a vote to confirm the new associate treasurer. Vote yes if you would like to, no if you wouldn't like to, and abstain if you want to stay out of the vote. A reminder that this takes a 2/3 majority to pass.
2 more votes.
3 more votes.
Huh?
3 more votes.
I think it's at 32.
Oh, now it is, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
1 more vote, and we'll be good.
There we go.
Awesome. All right.
Hey! All right. Well, that was it. All the business we had to get over with in the officer reports. And actually, one of the items here in the regular agenda isn't even necessary in the regular agenda because it got approved by finance. So I'm gonna be looking for a motion from Sadie. I see. Ethan, sorry, you can.
Sadie?
Motion to remove it from the agenda.
Motion to remove from the regular agenda. Do I see a second? I see a second from Stuart. Right. And Mary, as a reminder, you're now no longer a senator, now that you've been confirmed as associate treasurer. So yeah, interesting times. All scholarship, all council, elect your new senator for representation to Senate.
And just FYI, so we do have 2 pieces of legislation coming through. There are 2 resolutions, which are gonna come into as committee of a whole. So once we can remove this, we can go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that'll be the end of that there. Do I see a motion to approve the consent agenda? All right, I see a motion from Sadie. I see a second from Stuart. All right. And is there any opposition in the chamber to moving towards a vote on this? Seeing none, we will go and move to a vote. All right, vote yes if you'd like to approve the Cycle 6 consent agenda, no if you would not like to approve it, and abstain if you would like to stay out of this vote. And that'll be posting now. All right, we are currently at 29 votes. We need 5 more votes to continue.
I'll trade 33 now.
All right, since Mary is no longer a senator, our quorum number is actually now 33. So we will go ahead and move forward to end this vote. If people in the chamber haven't had the opportunity to do so, please state that now. All right, seeing none, I'll move to close the vote. All right, and with 33 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. All right, thank y'all. All right, do you have a motion?
All right, I guess we'll be looking for a motion to move into committee of a whole so that we can introduce these two pieces of legislation.
Are you gonna make the motion?
No.
Oh, Wesley has a motion, and then I see a second from Stuart here. Okay, is there any opposition in the chamber to moving into committee of the whole to generate legislation? All right, seeing that there's no opposition in the chamber, we are now in committee of the whole.
All right, so the first legislation, we're going to be looking over at two legislations. The first one is a resolution in support of the Kansas Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies. And we have folks from LAGO organization who authored this resolution that are going to share a little bit of why they wrote it, what is kind of the content of this, and then we can go ahead and vote on it. And secondly, we have another resolution coming through, which Wesley will present, which is regarding student housing. So yeah, if the LAGO members would like to come up here and speak in behalf of the organization and just a little bit of this resolution.
I will say as a reminder, we won't do a formal vote until we exit committee of the whole.
Yeah, so basically right now we're just kind of discussing it a little.
Just to keep some order to the space here, I'm going to go ahead and grant like 5 minutes for speaking, and we'll just do like extensions of time if that's necessary.
Okay,
Does that sound all right?
Yeah, I've just got a few words, a prepared statement on behalf of LAGO, so I'll just read it.
Awesome.
And that'll keep me on time.
All right, thank you.
Okay. To the 9 honorable members of the Kansas Board of Regents, Chancellor Gerard, Provost Mittelmeier, Interim Dean Colombo of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, members of the KU Student Senate, and other faculty and students on campus. Good evening. My name is Taylor Tappan. I'm a PhD candidate in Geography and Atmospheric Science. I'm here on behalf of the KU Latin American Graduate Organization, or LAGO, an interdisciplinary student association promoting social and academic exchanges among KU graduate students, united by our interest in Latin America. On behalf of LAGO, I'd like to share a statement of support for the KU Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, also known as CLACS, in response to proposed financial and administrative changes to this center. In recent months, we students have grown increasingly concerned about the future of CLACS because we believe that it no longer benefits from the critical institutional support it once enjoyed at KU. Our concern is founded upon the crippling financial constraints faced by CLACS and the proposed discontinuance or merger of its undergraduate and graduate degree programs into the Center for Global and International Studies. We respectfully oppose any fiscal reduction, discontinuance, or merger with other academic units, given CLACS's importance for students, faculty, and community members, and for its legacy propelling KU as one of the nation's leading universities for area studies, regional area studies. And I speak from my own firsthand experience. If it weren't for all the resources CLACS mobilized in helping me spend each summer working in Latin America as a graduate student, I also wouldn't be studying geography at KU. So just a little background, established in 1961, CLACS is not a solitary academic department, but a comprehensive national resource center on Latin America, designated by the U.S. Department of Education. It links more than 100 affiliated faculty members at KU from the schools of business, education, architecture and design, the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and the KU Medical Center, as well as students from humanities, social science, and STEM fields. Therefore, proposals to defund CLACS or discontinue its degree programs undermine the center's competitiveness for future funding from the Department of Education, while weakening KU's position as a premier area studies university. Make no mistake, CLACS is a vital locus of research, pedagogy, and community outreach for many reasons. For instance, number one, The center provides an interdisciplinary collaborative space where students and faculty develop expertise on Latin America's most important historical, cultural, economic, environmental, and political issues. 2, CLACS offers critical funding opportunities for students and faculty to conduct field research and build professional networks in Latin America. Number 3, CLACS offers a robust curriculum of less commonly taught indigenous languages, many of which are offered at only 2 or 3 universities nationwide. 4, CLACS partners with dedicated specialist librarians to ensure that KU Libraries hosts one of the nation's premier collections on Latin America. 5, CLACS fosters multicultural spaces that nurture the identities and scholarship of students and faculty of color. And number 6, CLACS develops teaching materials, cultural programming, and art exhibits on Latin America through partnerships with local school districts, community colleges, the KU Spencer Museum of Art, and the KU Office of Study Abroad. To conclude, we believe the value of CLACS transcends any assessment based solely on student credit hour metrics in its dedicated curriculum. We at the Latin American Graduate Organization respectfully request that the KU Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies receive the financial and institutional resources needed for fulfilling its mission in accordance to the university's stated commitment to diverse, equitable, and multicultural research, pedagogy, community outreach, and belonging. Thank you for listening, and rock chalk.
And with that, do we have any questions for the authors of this legislation? Or, oh, Stuart?
I just had a quick question.
We're going to get a mic to you, so you can get that.
Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. I noticed you guys talked a lot about how it enhances KU. Does it also have a symbiotic effect with the groups that you work with in South and Central America and the Caribbean as well?
Yeah, so CLACS since 1961, since its establishment, has really fostered a space for students and faculty to set up research collaborations, long-term research collaborations with partner universities, indigenous organizations, NGOs, state agencies in the region. And so without that sort of institutional support at KU, it makes it really difficult for graduate students, undergrads, study abroad programs, et cetera, from KU to spend time doing research or learning in Latin America.
Oh, do you want to get the...
It's okay. Last year we organized the Earth Day. With Sylvia, last year we organized the Earth Day. CLACS supported us as LAGO community, and we were able to bring about 5 indigenous leaders to provide a public discussion for all of us. And these are voices that are not usually heard. So through CLACS funding and with partnership with other groups on campus, we're able to provide those spaces for those voices to come through. And CLACS does really work closely with communities underground as well, and with the communities here in campus. It's just, they create a bridge for us to reach them.
All right, Umberto has a contribution here.
Yeah, so just why I think it's a very good idea that we as a Senate support this resolution is, so I think there's a couple of things to have in mind. First of all, a lot of us from Latin America even don't have access to this information that KU offers in our own countries and in our own school programs, because I've taken a lot of classes on Mexico in the College of Liberal Arts and on the Center for Latin America, and I've learned tons and tons and tons of information about my identity, about the identity of my country, my community, its problems, and its possible solutions through classes that I had never been exposed to in Mexico. And I know that's the case for many different countries here that are studied in this center. And second of all, this center, along with all the other centers that are being defunded, it's just a complete insult to what the United States portrays and claims to be in the entire world. And besides, I would like to remind everyone, after all, the U.S. is the only country that has thousands of military bases in all these countries. The least our schools can be doing is teaching people about these histories, about all this, so that we can be more aware of what problems they're going through, so that it's at least the bare minimum we can do.
All right. I see a contribution from Stuart.
Yeah, just because we don't have military bases, we do have advisors. We don't have thousands of military bases in Latin America. We have military advisors that assist. All the bases are owned by the host nation. Sorry, I just want to clarify that.
Oh well, yeah. So when I meant those,
and technically that's least when we keep the government.
The point is that there's military all over the world by the U.S. And teaching these kinds of courses on countries that have had military presence is like really important to at least be aware of the history of these countries, because it's not Latin America only that's being affected. It's also the Russian center. It's also the East Asian center. So it's just something very important to have into consideration.
All right.
May I add one quick follow-up?
Sure.
So just to sort of put this into context succinctly, right? This is a fluid situation. It's kind of ongoing. There's discussions, from university administrators at the dean's level and with the directors of the different centers on campus. But essentially, the proposal to cut the academic program and sort of defund the center's budget comes from one metric, and it's how many students are enrolled in the degree program. And so this is a really important distinction that we need to make about CLACS. Humberto mentioned that he has taken classes through there, but you're not a CLACS major, right? Most undergraduate and graduate students who are affiliated with the center are not actually students there. They're in their host departments, but they take center, or they do research, or they take classes through CLACS because they're interested in Latin America. So the center is a financially self-sustaining center. It pulls in money from the federal government. So cutting it represents no financial gain to the university. It's not like cutting an academic department with just a few students that represents a financial burden to the university. This is simply cutting it for the sake of cutting it.
All right. Any other contributions? Here, I see Naya, and then Mary.
So I just like, because I know you kind of spoke about how there was a suggestion of like the merger and being like an alternate option. And so I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to how a merger of all the centers could be seen as like, I guess, problematic or harmful, or what that might look like for CLACS if that were to be done.
Yeah, so again, this is information that I'm not necessarily privy to. I've sort of heard through back channels, but the proposal was to take the degree programs, the undergraduate major and the graduate master's and the graduate certificate, and merge it with global and international studies, which is one of the area study centers on campus, and then take the rest of CLACS, the sort of research and community outreach component, and put it into KU Center for Research. And the reason to do this was to try to prevent CLACS from dissolving altogether. But this is really what's key. At the end of this academic year, 2022, CLACS's designation as a U.S. Department of Education center on Latin America expires. So the center needs to reapply for a federal grant in order. And the federal grant's it's like $1.7 million over the course of 4 years, right? And this grant funds classes, it hires instructors, it provides languages, et cetera. So the current proposal was to merge the classes with global and international studies, and the rest of CLACS move it into the KU Center for Research to make it look like KU is offering institutional support still for CLACS so that it will be competitive for this big Department of Education grant. But all of that has sort of been put on hold. The university rejected the proposal to house the research and community outreach components of CLACS in KU Center for Research. And as I understand, just in the last couple of days, some faculty who are also affiliated with CLACS spoke out against merging it with global and international studies, which kind of dilutes it, right? CLACS already has its identity as a regional center based on Latin America. So merging it with global and international studies takes away that identity, really. Sorry, that's a long-winded answer, but I hope that.
So, yeah, see, you don't look at it. And also, just on that point, we're risking losing the Title VI funding. Title VI, CLACS was the only institution of its kind in the entire Midwest that would receive the Title VI recognition by the federal government. And by cutting it for 30%, and they came on top of that, they want to cut it 30% more funding for CLACS. Our director, Martha, resigned because of that. She straight up resigned. So all of a sudden, every 4 years, we have to renew this Title VI funding. So this year, incidentally, exactly on the time where we have to renew our funding, all of a sudden, they're just completely gutted the institutional funding for CLACS. Not only that, our director ended up resigning because of that, and then passing it on to our advisor, Brent Metz, who's already completely overwhelmed. There's no way that he's going to be able to, apply for a Title VI grant with all these uncertainties and all these cutting of the program funding. So, like my colleague said, they're using wrong metrics to measure the contribution of CLACS, and they're not taking into consideration the tremendous cultural, social impact that CLACS has for people of color and people for Latin American studies, not just for students from CLACS, but from people like myself, anthropology, geography, history. We all work with that center. The library is associated with that center. We're raising the Latin American identity from this university with that undercutting of funds.
All right, the next person we had was Mary.
Yes, yeah. So FLAS is foreign language area studies, right? So if you want to learn a less commonly taught language, an indigenous language, that funding is applied for from the Department of Education through this Title VI grant, and then dispersed through the area studies centers on campus. So Latin America, Africa, East Asia, Russia, East Europe, and Eurasia is one, and then global and international studies. So if you were looking for a FLAS scholarship, the funding would come down from the Department of Education through Title VI, and then it would be dispersed through these area study centers like CLACS.
I see Farzad has his hand up, but you can.
So not only would we be essentially using a research department for campus, but we would also be seeing a giant financial burden on these students that rely on these FLAS scholarships.
Yes, and also because the funding comes from the Department of Education, there's no financial gain for the university to cut the program because this is not a department, it's a interdisciplinary research center. That's right.
All right, and after Farsad's contribution, we might want to move on to the other piece of legislation that's being generated in Committee of the Whole, just to conserve time here.
We would qualify, but the Department of Education would look at the support, the perceived support that it sees from KU, offering to each one of these, 5 area study centers that we have currently, and that's the concern of the current director, is that with the proposed merger, KU will no longer be competitive compared to other universities that really are funding both administrative costs and the degree programs for their area study center. So the likelihood is that KU would no longer be able to be competitive for the 1.7 million Department of Education grant, and with that would scholarships, foreign languages, all that would kind of disintegrate until at least 4 years until we, might be competitive in some future.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have like any final contributions here before we move into the next piece of legislation?
Yeah, I've had my hand up for a long time on Zoom.
Sorry, Holly, I can't see here.
Oh, you're fine. It's really hard to hear people speak, and I did message in there, but I can hear the speakers at the front, which is really great, but I can't hear the people asking questions.
We did just discover that the mic might have been turned off for like the last few speakers, and so that might be the reason why.
Okay, well, it's a bit, I just want to make sure that we get that corrected.
Thankfully. All right. Thank you, Holly. Any others? All right. Next, we'll be moving into Wesley's legislation here.
Thank you very much.
No, ustedes, so we'll be voting when we go out of committee of the whole.
Gracias.
A ustedes, no, muchas gracias.
Yes, thank you.
All right, and so this is the last piece of legislation we have tonight, written by Wesley, the chair of our Student Rights Committee here in Senate, and it is a binding resolution revoking the delegation of housing oversight. And Wesley will go ahead and explain more.
All right, Wesley, will 5 minutes be enough to sort of go through the main points of the legislation?
Yeah, I was just going to give an overview of the problem rather than go point by point in the resolution.
Okay, brilliant. You can start now.
So essentially the issue right now is that student housing has zero oversight from any actual student organization. So it used to be that there is a system where there's 3 housing governing organizations in each of the different constituencies in student housing. So there's one for the residence halls, one for the apartments, one for the scholarship halls. Well, the only one that exists now is one for the scholarship halls. And student housing is still sending their rates proposals to the Board of Regents, but now just without really student review. The half of the section for student review of the fee proposal in their current submission to the Board of Regents is talking about how their own staff reviewed it and why they think it's great. So it's not really tenable. Students don't really get a voice anymore, and they're trying to charge students way more than they really should. They've been having budget problems for like the past 7 years, and the fact that they haven't gotten it under control is kind of deplorable. And speaks to the current management under student housing. And this resolution eventually basically tells the Board of Regents we as Student Senate are reasserting our right to represent students in the housing fee review. For example, at K-State, it is a student government that does it over there rather than like a myriad of different smaller organizations. And we are essentially restoring that form back to KU from before we delegate it to all these different smaller organizations that don't even exist anymore. They're not even like the AURH and the APLA are no longer even Silk registered student groups. So, and this, the second part of this resolution also tells the Board of Regents, as Student Senate, we are not down with their 3% rate increase, and that we want student housing to come here to the actual student representation on campus and go through the regular legislative cycle to actually get the review from students and not lie to our regulators.
All right, and with that, do we have any questions, contributions? I see one from Mary. And Camden, I have you on the list.
Hi, Wesley. Thank you for your time. I was wondering if anyone has reached out to APLA and AURH to see why their senators haven't been elected yet. And is this an issue unique to this year? In previous years, have we seen their senators actually participate and actually be elected? Thank you.
2 years ago, I believe AURH had a senator. For the past year, I'm not too sure. And since neither of them are actually Silk registered student groups, it's a lot harder to contact them because the Rock Chalk Central pages are not even public.
And I can say I've been reaching out to them because that's my duty to fill out those positions. And there's been, so there's been zero response on behalf of these organizations when they're asked to fill the position. Just nothing.
And then to add on top of that, the fact that student housing itself removed all of the different names of these organizations from their own review process that they give to the Board of Regents, they're dead groups. They're not around. There's no one to contact.
All right, Camden?
Can you give a little bit more explanation as to your conflict of interest clause? Like, how exactly does that work, and how is that conflict present?
So essentially, back when the AURH and APLA used to exist, but this still happens for the ASHC, all of their events are contingent on student housing approving them. So they don't really get to spend money in the same way we do in Student Senate, where it has to go through Aramis and Waters in order to actually like do anything. And so they need to be happy with them. So each of these organizations have a conflict of interest where they can either adequately stand up for students or they can get their parties approved. Because if they upset student housing, suddenly all of their like block parties, pizza parties, what have you, are suddenly canceled for the foreseeable future.
Question for follow-up.
Yeah, I don't see anyone else on the floor.
I'm just curious, are there any empirical examples of that happening?
Yeah, so I was actually the AURH representative for Oliver Hall and the final AURH representative for Oliver Hall before they shut it down. And because of the like storm I kicked up about them shutting down Oliver, for the last semester in Oliver, we actually didn't have any events. And the rest of our money was just because every student in student housing pays a portion of their student housing cost to like a pool for these organizations to spend. They took the remainder of the Oliver Hall money and they put it in the general fund for just student housing because they were just upset with us.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
I have been complaining about this for the past 3 years.
All right. Any other questions or contributions?
Yeah, right here,
Floor?
online.
Oh, online. Who is it?
It's Malik. Can you please scroll down? What is this resolution calling for? The therefore clause. For the screen sharing portion, we're not seeing the therefore clause. What are we voting on, basically?
Okay. Yeah, legislation has now been moved down.
So specifically what is being voted on is the two resolution part of the resolution is the first is taking the delegation of oversight from housing from these different student groups, which 2/3 of them don't exist anymore, and put it back through Senate. So basically the standard formula in other regents institutions like K-State. And then the second one is telling the Board of Regents that we do not accept their current 3% rate proposal and we want them to talk to us about it.
All right. Next I have Naya and then Mary. Malik, did you want to follow up or are you good with that answer?
It's another question, but
okay.
Yeah, let Naya and Mary go, and then I'll come back to me, please.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I just was gonna ask if this was to pass and then that eventually like that it then fell, the process would fall under Student Senate. I guess like question wise, like would there then be like the effort to make sure that as Student Senate, like we're going out and doing outreach with all of the residence halls and like housing entities on campus to make sure that each of them have like a representative, even if it's not technically like AURH anymore or whatever, but that like whatever that committee was or whatever that review was on, that like we had representatives from each hall to be able to voice concerns specific to their hall and the needs that, you know, they're needing, I guess. I don't know if that's in the resolution already, but that would be something that I would want to see if this were to pass.
It's not like explicitly written in the resolution, but it is like implied in the going through the standard like Student Senate legislative cycle, because then it would be up to the committees. So then it would probably go to University Affairs and then another committee hopefully writes. But if not, so be it. And in the next step of that outreach is like in the Student Senate rewrite, we are like I'm advocating, at least, I don't know whether it's been accepted or not, to replace the organizational senators with ASHC, from ASHC, AURH, etc., since you know they're mostly going unfilled, with students who would be elected by like a general vote from those constituencies, similar to the off-campus senators right now. So that way there would be a point person for each of those, sort of build a foundation, since their primary constituency and primary issues brought to Senate would be from their housing groups.
All right, and next we would have Malik in speaking order, then Mary.
Okay. Bear with me, everyone. This is going to be a long one. I will personally be voting negative for this because, first of all, if we go all the way up and it's a binding resolution, that means that it is not just for just this Senate session. Like, it's not for just this year, it's for all futures. And we are basically getting 3 representatives from Student Senate just because in one community as a whole. That is a very dangerous precedent to set, where we are basically kicking out 3 senators or 3 senator positions. Sorry, that's not the same thing as senators. But and we're basically banking on future elected senators or future elected executive senators, exec to basically reach out and do that. And we have no guarantee of that. We right now have representation, whether we like it or not. ARH is actually doing some student representation and advocating for students in the housing level. Last year, the Ethan Chris, who is the president of ARH last year, and I believe this year too, did a tremendous job and played a really major role in getting the change in the policy for RAs to not call KUPSL for marijuana and whatnot. So I don't see the point in basically making enemies out of ARH and other housing organizations just because they're serving as a rubber stamp, and because we know that the administration, whether we like it or not, we're not going to antagonize students. We're going to antagonize the administration, like the KU administration. And the KU administration is notorious, not just in housing, but everywhere, to not listen to students. So we're not going to kick out a student organization just because they are basically cannot negotiate well with their with the association that is funding them, basically. So because of that, I don't see the point of us, especially that first clause, the therefore clause, where we're basically kicking out few representatives and antagonizing AORH and other housing associations just because they have not been electing a senator, or they did not stand up to housing as much as we wanted them to raise rates. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So I guess to correct the record, you can't antagonize organizations that don't exist anymore. And 2 out of 3 of the groups listed in here that are student organizations and Overwatch groups with air quotes aren't even Silk registered. So they don't exist. They don't have regular meeting times. They don't have publicized minutes. They don't have point people. They don't even have student senators because they haven't sent any. So it's essentially choosing between either having oversight or not having oversight. And of course, with this is not a change to the SSRR. Currently, there are still those organizational senators. And this resolution wouldn't delete those senator positions until those amendments to the SSR actually come through. So the ASH, I believe, is the only functional the only functional organization mentioned in this resolution. They could still send in another senator now that Mary has stepped down from that position. It's not stopping them at all. And if this were to be passed tonight, it still wouldn't stop them, and it still wouldn't stop committees from reaching out to relevant groups in those constituencies, like the different parts of housing, if AORH were to come back into existence, or if the Apartment Living Association were to come back into existence. But right now, student housing has 0 oversight, and they are sending their proposals directly to the Board of Regents, circumventing all student review. So if you want Sarah Waters to be able to increase the housing fee by 3% every year with no checks, that would be a vote no. But if you believe that Student Senate needs to be able to look out for students, protect student interests, and represent students, because we still represent on-campus students. Student Senate isn't just everyone who's not on campus organization. So if you want to protect students, it would be a vote for this resolution.
All right. Malik, would you like to be in the speaking order?
Yeah,
I heard
for sure.
comment in the middle there. Okay. Next we'll be going to Mary, then Naya, then...
No. I did have a few comments, Umberto. Or is that Ethan? I can't tell. I'm sorry. I'm horrible.
I do understand that you have a few comments, but we do have a few people ahead of you in the speaker order now.
It is technically community as a whole, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah, that is true, but have to keep some order. So yeah, Mary, would you like to?
Yes.
I don't think the mic is on.
This is on.
There
Hello.
we go.
Okay, cool. So I guess my question is, isn't this resolution technically banking on trends we've only seen this year, the first year out of a pandemic?
No, because my freshman year at KU, we faced essentially the exact same issue, including the closure of the lowest cost residence hall. Because student housing stopped updating, maintaining the building, so they use that as an excuse to close it. And by that one vote by AURH, the lowest cost of living on campus for any student increased outside of the scholarship halls. We have to apply for those. So for the regular residence halls, the lowest cost for living on campus increased by $1,400 by one vote that wasn't publicized, and it was anonymous amongst its members. So you couldn't even know who in AURH from what hall voted on what. That is not accountability, and it essentially allows housing to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And the years following, the Board of Regents forced everything to sort of remain flat for the most part, and that was like a state action upon KU. So for the entire time that I've been in at KU, student housing has been trying to raise rates. It's just that for 2 years in the middle of it, they were blocked by the state. But now the state's allowing it again, they seem to be going, hey, like hog wild with it, as you can tell from the 3% increase.
Can I be added to the list again?
Sure. Naya will be next.
Yeah. I guess it's like wouldn't necessarily be like a question. But I guess just like a little bit of like point of clarification, just going back to a little bit what I spoke on in my officer report, and Ethan and Holly could probably provide like a little more information on this. But when University Senate met with the chief financial officer, Jeff DeWitt, he kind of spoke about the housing rates rising and the purposes for that, and kind of what that plan was looking like. And one of the main reasons given for the housing rate increase was that housing had much needed maintenance and had debt repayment as their primary concerns. I think that looking at an increase of housing, for one, housing is already very unaffordable for students. There is not clear affordable housing on campus, and the lowest rates of housing that we do have, the infrastructure is not good. The heating and cooling is not good. I've worked in housing. I've seen these conditions even in the best of buildings on campus. So I think that it's important to make sure that, like what Wesley said, that there are checks being done all around, and that housing is not taking advantage of the fact that there aren't student representatives within AURH and then the apartment living constituencies at this moment, and basically making it seem as if they are running it through these constituencies, which they're not, and they're not being represented. Because ultimately, if the housing rates go up, it's going to be on students basically paying and being relied on to pay for basic comfortability living. Like, I don't think any student should have to literally pay more money just because there's leaks in the building or the infrastructure is bad or they can't have heating on in the beginning of November or December, because these are issues that have happened in housing through the pandemic, before the pandemic, and there's issues, and they are issues that are continuing to happen. Sorry, I know it's not a question, but I just thought it was a point to make sure that there was like a little bit more clarification, like on why I think something like, I think there's some things that need to be made more clear in the resolution, especially when it comes to like making sure that we're still having like AURH and like those constituents within the residence halls and apartments and scholarship halls represented, and what that review would look like, or what that committee would look like, who reviews that with housing overall. But yeah, I mean, I just think for a long time, students have been very discounted, and housing has relied on, this lack of communication and this lack of representation of students, like when it comes to discussing, money being raised on campus, whether that's with housing or anything else.
I guess
before you respond to that, Wesley, I just also wanted to say a link to the piece of legislation has been added onto the chat. So if you want to review it there, you can do so now. With that, I'll let you answer there.
To add on top of that, like all of those like issues or questions we can pose to housing once when we're able to force them to the table. Because right now, Senate has zero leverage over housing because they don't need any student approval with the current process. So why would they care to get it? But with this, if we're able to drag housing into Senate, we would be able to ask those questions like, why are we spending so much money yet leaky pipes can't be fixed? Why are we spending so much money yet, they can't turn on the heat once when winter comes around? Why are we spending so much money yet, our residence halls are dog shit and our scholarship halls are falling apart? So those are all questions that we will be able to ask housing once when they actually have to come. Because right now, they don't have to listen to us, and they don't listen to us, and they don't listen to students because they don't have to. So this would be dragging them back and forcing them to actually face students, which they haven't done in years.
All right, next would be Malik.
I had a question to how much of a vote do we need for a binding resolution as this one? Isn't it not just a majority?
Oh, no, it is just a majority.
Even for binding resolutions?
I believe so, yes. Because it's just the same as a resolution, except it demands that Senate is actually going to take the action to do this. And so that would mean that we'd be moving forward to have those votes in the future.
Okay. I had two more things, which is questions to Wesley. Question number one is, Wesley, could you explain then what the difference is between what that first therefore clause does versus what changing the SSRR would changing SSRR do, other than going through the change needed? But what is that therefore clause doing if not kicking out those senators, even if the AORH is not registered through Rock Chalk Central right now?
Would you like me to answer the first question first, or would you like to ask both and then me answer both?
No, go ahead for that first one.
A point of information, this legislation cannot amend the SSRR because it is not a bill to do so.
So to be specific about what the first resolved clause does is that it's just telling the Board of Regents that Student Senate is doing the job now because it's revoking the delegation of oversight from these organizations. Then the second one puts it in Student Senate. While the SSRR does not include any language about housing oversight, it does not mention delegating specifically to the AURH or the APLA or the ASHC. The only time those groups are mentioned is in the organizational senators part. So it is categorically not kicking them out of Senate because they still have their seats should they choose to ever fill it. So that would be a debate in the future rather than right now.
Right.
The ASHC still can get their senator.
Okay.
Alec, do you have any other things you want to add before we continue?
No, that'll be it.
All right. Awesome. Next, we will go to Camden and then to Mary.
I'm still unclear as to how, passing this resolution forces housing to listen to us or gives us any oversight to the process, because I don't really understand why housing would comply if we just kind of unilaterally demanded that, oh, you go through us first. So, through what procedural avenue are you planning to make sure that student oversight is restored?
Essentially telling the Board of Regents, because the Board of Regents is the only group that kind of cares about student oversight. And in fact, they keep mentioning K-State a lot because they have a very functional oversight of their fees and rates. So the K-State student government before just sent a letter of disapproval to the Board of Regents saying, hey, our student housing isn't talking to us. Please reject it and make them negotiate So the Board of Regents did exactly that, because in the end, we are also one of their stakeholders if we go to their meetings, if we send them letters, etc. That's why resolutions like the one that just came before about CLACS is also important, because telling them their student disapproval allows them to have a footing to take action against Douglas Gerard when he comes up there and decides to spout whatever stupid plans he has. So it is using the same thing that the AERH would use if they existed still, and that is just telling the Board of Regents whether they approve or disapprove of the fee review. But this year, there are none of those organizations except for the ASHC, so there's nothing to tell the Board of Regents. So the Board of Regents is getting no input from students whatsoever.
Is the ASHC not submitting reports to the Board of Regents?
I don't believe they sent anything directly to the Board of Regents this year, but I do believe that they approved the rates. But housing also isn't telling the Board of Regents either, and never mentioned the ASHC anywhere in their housing report for the first time since the ASHC kind of exists.
Anything else, Camden?
No.
All right. Next, we'll move to Eric, then Mary. Sorry, speaker orders bumping here.
So I guess I'm also slightly confused about, is housing at KU under any legal or procedural obligation to listen to these student groups? Or have they just done that in the past out of, I don't know what reason?
The Board of Regents requires student review of essentially everything that every university does. And different universities, student governments have allocated those responsibilities to different subgroups or subcommittees. So for housing, it's either the full student government or specific housing orgs. KU for quite a while has been doing housing orgs, but those housing orgs don't exist anymore. So the Board of Regents still requires student input, but they just don't have it right now. So we have the opportunity to fill that void and say, hey, we are the student input now. We'll be the student input going forward. If you want to raise rates on students, you need to talk to us first. We need to be able to see, we need to be able to ask why, etc., which we have not had the opportunity to do this year.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
In fact, another thing built on top of it is that the route they're supposed to go through AURH and ASHC, once when it goes through those smaller orgs, it's supposed to go something called the Student Housing Advisory Board, or SHAB. But I believe, according to Mary, told me earlier, SHAB hasn't even met once this year. So they haven't really they couldn't approve anything because they haven't met either. And according to the Student Housing Handbook on the Student Housing website, SHAB is also supposed to have a representative from Student Affairs and talk to Student Affairs, but they haven't done so either.
Next, we'll have Mary.
Perfect. So I guess my question is, if this is the big deal that you say it is, which I agree, it's a big deal, why have we not talked to Naya and Ethan about them speaking to KBOR? We know that they can speak to KBOR about housing issues, as they brought up gender inclusive housing. Why have we not had them talk about this issue with KBOR as well?
I spoke with Naya and Ethan a couple nights ago, and they told me to write a resolution about it.
That's fair. I can't even argue that.
I can state that is a fact. All right, Naya will be next here, and then did I see a hand up from Birdie? Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So, the thing with KBOR is that yes, they do care a lot about student oversight, and when the difference with this between me being in a room and being hey, KBOR, you need to care about these things. KBOR operates on a very structural basis. And if you're not coming to them with the breakdown of what you want, what you need, how you need them to get it to you, it's really just sitting in a room and being hey, I need this. And then being cool, what do you want me to do about it? You know what I'm saying? So in this way, I think this would be something that's proactive in reaching out to them and being hey, this is what's happening. There's no student involvement. The student voice is being heard at a very minimal level, to which it shouldn't be. This is what we're asking for. Housing's going to come to you about this. This is false information at this point. They're reporting things to you that are not true. And we're bringing it up the ladder to advocate to you all. So obviously, yeah, you know, I've been talking about student housing with KBOR multiple times at this point this year. And I think it's something where, like, not even just me, but I think that there has been past student administration, like, who has also done that. I think it's just been because there's been kind of a lack of maybe like resolution, like binding resolutions, or just kind of like the structural outline of the plan and what the plan looks like and what we're needing, and have them act on it. There hasn't really been as much action that could be done. So yeah, I hope that answered it. And then just for, because one, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see like the screen at this moment, but I would say that if there's not already a clause in there that we make sure we're prioritizing representatives from the student housing entities within this process within Student Senate, I think that that should be added. And I think to Melik's point that, like, it's important to make sure that, like, the legislation we pass still is a good representative of the entities that, you know, currently exist, even, or don't currently exist, but have before. Because it's also important to understand, like, we are coming out of a pandemic. You know, some students just don't have a lot of time on their hands, don't have a lot of time and accessibility to these things. So I think it's important that, especially if this is going to be something that's going forward, where you know, AURH and apartment living and all that stuff does reestablish itself and send those representatives, we make sure that this binding resolution continues to make sure, you know, that they have a very strong main advocating voice within this process. So if that's not already in there, I think that that's something that we should edit to make sure is in there with the other clauses.
The thing that I was specifically hoping for was around either next cycle or in the rewrite, we would put in a formal process for getting through like housing proposals. Because this year, since they don't exist, it's going to be very ad hoc anyway, since you can't reach out to organizations that aren't there. But next week, we'll have the opportunity to amend the SSRR and say, hey, this is a process that we want. Now that it's in Student Senate, we can charge like either this committee or that committee with having to talk to these groups. We can bring them in, et cetera, and we can draft that process. But the first reading for the housing proposal rates is next Wednesday, when we would be like legislating and voting on that new like specific process other than just the standard legislative cycle, like those amendments to the legislative cycle. Then by that point, if we don't have our voice heard, then the Board of Regents won't necessarily listen to us because they would have already done their debate. They would have already done their consideration. And then by the December meeting, they're merely voting on all of these like as a group. So we won't have nearly as effective as a voice. But we can easily do that within the next week with like an actual amendment to the SSRR. But before we can amend the SSRR, we have to say it's our responsibility before we can lay out the exact way it's going to go through Senate.
All right. Question in the teams.
Can you add the speaker order, please?
Who is that?
That's Matt.
Oh, perfect.
And I see Holly also has her hand up, so I don't know if you
Yes.
saw that.
So Melik and Holly have questions on the floor, but it looks like Hamad has also made a motion to move out of committee of the whole with the generated legislation. Do I see a second? Second from Camden? All right. So a motion has been properly moved and seconded. Is there opposition to moving out of committee of the whole?
Opposition.
All right, there is opposition. All right, it'll take a 2/3 vote to then move out of committee of the whole. All right, that's now been posted in the general. Vote yes if you would like to leave committee of the whole, no if you would like to remain here and continue debate, and abstain if you would like to abstain from this vote. I'll let that run for 2 minutes.
we can still do positive and negative speeches when we leave committee as a whole, right?
We can. So we can still go back into a speech order, and then that would just be a lot more controlled. And we would put times to the speeches of 2 minutes to each person.
Yeah, so if you have a question, you can still ask it. You click yes.
All right, we're still looking for 2 more votes to have quorum when we exit committee of the whole. So if we can get those 2 votes in, that would be great.
One more vote. For the folks online, we are just missing 1 more vote to reach the quorum number necessary. So if you haven't voted, please do so now.
I thought quorum became 32 when Mary.
No, it was 34 when Mary left. It became 33. Yeah.
My bad.
If you know of someone that's a voting member and they're not here, please reach out to them so that we can continue. We just have 2 more votes to do, and then we'll be done for tonight.
All right, we have 33 requisite votes. Has anyone in this chamber not had the ability to vote yet that has the ability to do so? All right, anyone on the teams? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and move to close this vote. And with a motion here, 27 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, and 3 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. We are out of committee of the whole. All right, and we will now move forward to the new pieces of legislation that were added to the agenda. The first one that will be considered is the resolution concerning CLACs. Do I see a motion? Do I see a motion? Oh, motion from Wesley? To call a previous question, I'm imagining? Okay, do I have a second? I see a second from Eric. All right, is there any opposition to moving to a vote on the resolution for CLACs? All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and start that vote. Give me the number.
It's 303.
If folks want to sponsor, I can also add that in the chat here as well.
304.
Huh? 21 or 22?
22.
Ethan, I have a question.
Yes, Holly?
Am I allowed to make a point of clarification at any point or no?
A point of clarification, I mean, you could make it during the vote.
Yeah, it's for the other resolution.
All right.
Just let me know when.
Okay, sounds good.
It's already been
Yes, we'll need to vote for both resolutions separately. All right, so 304?
Eric.
Okay. So this will be titled, Do you support Senate Resolution 2022-304? Yes, if you would like to support this resolution. No, if you would not like to support it. And abstain if you would like to stay out of this vote. And a reminder, this is for the CLACS resolution that was presented first. And I will give that about 2 minutes to run. Unless we get 33, and I will be grabbing that vote. And while you're voting, I've also put something in the chat below that says sponsor Senate CLACS resolution. Just reply to that with your name as you'd like it to be spelled on the resolution, and you can be added as a sponsor. All right, so it looks like we're looking for 2 more votes, and we'll be good to go. Holly, as we're waiting for the votes, if you want to make your point of clarification on the other legislation right now, you can maybe go ahead and do it.
Sure.
Because points aren't technically speeches.
Sure. The reason why I stood in opposition to voting is because I wanted to say this, but I guess I can say it here, so it doesn't matter. To Mary's question earlier, to Wesley about why this hadn't been brought up to Board of Regents, it's because we only found out last week in University Senate about this proposed 3% increase in housing rates because Jeff DeWitt, the Chief Financial Officer, came to University Senate and spoke. It had not been mentioned to us before, and we had absolutely no idea what was that was even going on, and that we didn't have any oversight. So I just wanted to make that clear that next time we do meet with Board of Regents, obviously that will be something that we bring up, and obviously if this resolution passes, it will get sent to Board of Regents. But I just wanted people to know that we didn't know, and that's why it wasn't brought up previously when we brought up gender inclusive housing, because otherwise it would have been.
All right, thank you for that clarification, Holly. We are still seeking 1 more vote for this legislation. So if you know anyone who's maybe stepped out of the chamber or stepped off the Teams call for a second, please ask them to consider coming back to vote. 1 more.
And I don't know, like these votes happen within 5 minutes of each other. I don't know what votes are. And if they're online, they should be like. Uh, Again, we're still looking for one vote. Folks in the teams, please make sure you're voting. We just had quorum 2 minutes ago. So, like, what is up?
Apparently not quorum.
Yeah. So hopefully we get that one extra vote right now. If you know of someone that was on the call and left, just please ask if they could come back. That would be appreciated.
I think we got it.
They're just muted. That's what's wrong.
All right, got it. Thank you.
There we go. All right, make sure that stays. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Do I have a motion in the chamber? I thought I saw one over here. Oh, Eric? Second from Camden? All right, and so we'll move to call to question on the resolution concerning student housing.
I have a statement from the AORH president to read to Senate right now that he just wrote to me.
Unfortunately, we have moved in, so we can't have any speeches.
Well, I'm objecting to that motion, so you'll need to go into a full vote if you want that then. Usually.
With an objection on the floor, we will have to look on whether we want to close debate on this topic. So we will now be moving to a vote on whether or not we are going to be voting. All right, a poll has now been shared. Do you want to end debate on Senate Resolution 2022-305? Yes, if you would like to end debate and go to voting on this bill. No, if you would like to remain debating this bill. And abstain if you would like to stay out of the vote. And a reminder that this does take a 2/3 majority to pass.
Ethan, can I present it as a point of information the same way or no?
Well, I guess like in terms of like a point of information, would it be like a speech though in support or against the resolution?
It's more of explanations of the different things that were said.
Okay. All right.
Actually, that's fine.
It'll depend on like whether or not we leave debate here.
Okay.
Little Caesars
All right. As we wait for enough votes on this motion here, feel free to peruse the comments on the meeting as well.
Oh yeah, because they're like expanded to like which is yeah, Highway 69. It's like an Owen Park. Yeah. Probably very nice. Oh, I'm sure you will have.
I have a 96 one.
All right, we need 3 more votes before we can have quorum on this vote.
I apologize to everyone, but I am calling quorum right now.
It looks like quorum has been called. And so let's see here. Max, can I have you as IA director read the roster?
Oh, we're missing one more vote.
I'm pretty sure since the motion has been made, the names have to be read, even if the votes are coming in.
Oh, 33 on the vote. Okay, so it looks like quorum has been obtained. And so I will move forward. Has anyone in the chamber not had the ability to vote on this motion? All right. Seeing and hearing no opposition, I will move forward to ending the voting. All right. And with a vote of 28 in affirmation, 3 in the negative, and 2 abstentions, this motion clearly passes, and we will end debate on this resolution and move for a formal vote. And so now the poll in the chat will be, do you approve Senate Resolution 2022-305? All right, if you would approve this resolution, vote yes. If you do not approve of this resolution, vote no. And if you would like to abstain from this vote, please do so. And I will let that poll run for a few minutes. And this will be our final attendance vote.
Because I think this kid says exactly. Okay, you're oh, come on. Dude, I swear to God.
All right. right, we are looking for 2 more votes to meet quorum.
I can't get on my computer, but I can't get on my computer, but.
Oh, you vote no?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be
32. Dude, when does this occur? What's up?
All right, so, oh, damn. So now that we have 34 votes in here, I will move to close voting. Has anyone in the chamber and or on the teams not had the ability to vote on this resolution? All right. Seeing none, I will move to close the vote on this. And with 20 votes in the affirmative, 11 votes in the negative, and 3 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. All right. We will now move to the announcements portion of our meeting. I'll go ahead and start with this one first announcement since it is a bit of an irregularity. I have moved the legislative deadline to be on Monday, the 15th of November at 5 p.m. And so if you have any final legislation that you would like to submit for our last cycle of the year of 2021, please do so by that date. Do we have any other announcements on the floor? Let's see. I see Hamad has put up the Student Health Advisory Board. So please do attend that if you have the time. You can register by scanning that QR code there. So do so if you are interested. I see a motion from Sadie. All right, do I have a second? All right, I see a second from Eric. Do we have any opposition to this action? Seeing none, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you all. Oh, yeah, there you go. Probably need to move a bit further down there. No problems. Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us online, everyone. Go ahead and adjourn.
You know, dude, like 5 days.